Awesome.
So welcome and welcome again. We're so delighted that you've made it back to connect with us in Medical and Metaphysical Magic with Karyn, Creighton and Janelle Davis. And we're getting some real momentum here. We've got some wonderful people on the call and people still joining as they're organising their internet connections. Now, if you're listening to this live right now with us, or if you're listening to this later, we thank you very much. And the way the program has been running is we are responding to questions, real life questions that people have in their sphere, things that are happening in life, situations within their own physical body, and then an interest and a fascination for the metaphysical components of that. So we've been sharing, haven't we, Karyn? As much as
we have. It's been such fun.
Yeah. So I do, at the beginning of this, need to say something, and we are not offering medical advice. What we are doing is offering our opinions, our own personal opinions, our own personal experience, and there's a lot of experience here. So thank you very much, Karyn, for bringing your magic and wonder to this opportunity where people can...
it's my pleasure.
Yeah, where people can glean some really useful information from both a broad level and a very specific level. So, Karyn and I just recently spent the weekend together in Malafai Heads up where? Where were we? Above Auckland, about an hour and a half out of Auckland.
It's an hour and a half, hour and a half north of Auckland, and my gosh, it's so stunning up here. I'm still there, so bearing in mind with that, my internet connection can be a little bit funny, so if my sound goes weird, that's the reason why. But it's such a deeply relaxing space and a very healing space. It felt like really and inspirational. Like it's bringing up all sorts of ideas and things to manifest into our new realities, because we're bringing new realities through every day, aren't we, Karyn? You know, that's the beauty of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And being up there with very, very quiet sound, very quiet. The energy is quiet, the area is quiet, the electronics are quiet. And although we did have Wi-Fi connection, well, actually we didn't have Wi-Fi connection, we had our phone data. Our playtimes were gorgeous, weren't they, as we walked along the harbour, the inlet, and then out to the surf beach later on, and washed ourselves, let the ocean drench us with its salty water. And there's a real cleansing component. I mean, salt brings in it's used at a metaphysical level a lot for cleansing and clearing and setting space if people do it in ritual. Salt is used for ritual, for creating lines, for creating barriers, or as a cleanser for crystals, or as a cleanser for self. I know that at the physical level, there's some beautiful salt solutions, aren't there, Karyn, that can be used for an internal cleanse?
Yeah, the thing about salt, I mean, I know that a lot of people use that like a nate pot for cleansing out the sinuses. So you can use salt in a nate pot and you can just pour it down your nose. I mean, to me personally, it feels like suffocation, but others really enjoy doing it. I personally prefer going in the waves and getting roughed and tumbled, and that clears out the sinuses as well, doesn't it? So, you know, but it also, I think, you know, I believe with the salt water, because of course it's not just salt, there's all the other minerals and everything that are in there. So you go in the salt water and you've got this wonderful absorption of nutrients through the skin, and that's amazing, isn't it, really? We never think of that. We never think, oh, we're absorbing nutrients, but we do. We absorb through our skin, and a lot of nutrients, especially the minerals, can be absorbed beautifully through the skin. And that's why when we've been on holiday, isn't it, we feel invigorated and renewed with the cellular renewal, but also the spiritual cleanse like you were just talking about. And I know when I do a house clearing, like when I physically clean the house, and then I go through and do like sage sticking, but if it feels very sticky energy wise, I'll always use salt on the windowsills and the doors, leave it for half an hour, and then hoover it up, and then throw the hoover bag away. If you've got an old-fashioned hoover, that is, or if you've got a Dyson, you can get rid of it. But it really, really helps absorb sticky negativity.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what we were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And so another lovely thing to do, I don't know if anybody's ever had a Himalayan salt bath with the larger salt crystals. Himalayan salt bath can be used for many things. You can actually do it equivalent to a 3-day cleanse through using a kg of Himalayan salt with a tempered bath. So just as, you know, that temper where you don't know if your skin's inside or out, so it's the same as body temperature. You sit in there for 20 minutes, and it's similar to a 3-day detox or cleanse at least. To do that, it's big on the body, so you need to have lots and lots to drink. But it is a lovely way to start or finish a process if you've been going through something. But if you want to invigorate yourself, then you'd throw a decent handful of the Himalayan salt crystals into the bath, and that gives more of an invigorating bath. So if you want a bit more of a deeper sleep one, then you might put in 2 handfuls. So it's just understanding the difference in what your outcome is for a bath at that level of healing. And like Karyn said, it because what's happening is going in through your skin are these beautiful minerals and the salts that are just working with your whole being. And of course, we forget sometimes that it's not just our physical body. I was working with a lady yesterday, and I was beautifully reminded it was about 10 centimeters outside of her skin where we were actually working. The cells that were renewing into the skin could be seen, and we were working with clearing them so that the renewal of the skin and her inner being was at a higher vibration rather than what had been planned to be coming in. So anyway, that was off on a different than we expected, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, just to go into salts a bit more, because I mean, people get a bit confused around sort of like salt and Himalayan salt and Epsom salt. So just a reminder, guys, if you do an Epsom salt foot bath or bath, is only stay in it for 12 to 13 minutes. Because if we stay in, it's a wonderful magnesium sulfate, is a wonderful detoxifier. So what it does is it pulls out toxins from the skin, from the feet, but if we leave our body in there for too long, reverse osmosis starts to happen, and so we start actually absorbing the toxins that are in the water. So it's really important to remember that. So I say to my clients, just stay in for 12 minutes. Now, you can always have, like Karyn was saying, a wonderful Himalayan salt bath and stay in there longer. And you can have on the side dissolved your Epsom salts and put it in for the last 12 minutes of your bath. Then you're going to get a double whammy, you know. And so if you like a long hot bath, then add the Epsom salts at the last few minutes, and you'll get huge benefits. And because of the programs I run, it's a lot of detoxification and that sort of thing. And a lot of people get, as they're moving through the emotional, physical layers of toxins, they start getting some old symptoms or even things they've never felt before. As the body starts releasing them, and Epsom salt baths, foot baths can be amazing. And the thing I get asked the most probably is, okay, how much Epsom salts? And so basically for a bath, 500 grams, yes, it's quite a lot. For a foot bath, 250 grams. If you're going to do it, you want to do it, and you might as well get the benefits therapeutically. So that's the fun thing about Epsom salts. Gosh, we just go off on a tangent, don't we, Karyn?
We're going off on another one because we've got a comment here too about flotation tanks are amazing with all the Epsom salts in them. And the comment is that from Charlotte that she still prefers the surf. So I don't know if anyone else has been involved. Obviously, this lady has in flotation tanks. Have you actually experienced a flotation tank, Karyn?
A flotation tank, it's never really appealed to me because I've never sort of heard about them and heard how wonderful they are, but because it's in a dark, confined space, I've never felt drawn to doing it. And I've learned over the years is if something doesn't feel right for me, if I've got that intuition and that doesn't feel right, then it's not going to be
for you
what I need, really.
Yeah. Okay. So I have experienced a number of flotation tanks. The deprivation tanks is what I think of them as. Where it's a dark space. It's kind of like this big body cast, and then there's just this silence, this real amazing silence that you find yourself in, and there's this flotation, of course, because of the amount of salts in the bath that lifts you up. I came across them. This was probably 23 years ago or something, and I had a series of them, and for me that was the first level of really beginning to say hello to Karyn. And I found it really useful for me. It also took me down a path of working with Harry Palmer, resurfacing and the avatar. So that was fascinating. I don't know if anyone on the program has ever heard that, but it is a way of getting down to a meditation space, kind of forced because of the situation you put yourself in, but to observe and be aware of the way we do and don't interact with our thoughts and our ways of being. So it is a fascinating experience if anyone is interested. If you're like Karyn and it's not your thing, all good. All good, we understand.
Yeah. I've heard it, and I did do some research quite a long time ago on how it is so beneficial. I mean, water is, but talking about floating, I was fortunate enough to be in Israel in the Dead Sea, and that was amazing because of the amount of salts and things in there. And that's when I started. So that would have been in 1999 or something. Yeah, 1998, 1999. And that's when I started researching magnesium, because that's where we source our magnesium from, is the Dead Sea. And because it's that, just the minerals in those salts just made you go all floppy and relax. And your brain just didn't go anywhere. It was fantastic. A real similar space, I'd say, Karyn, really, with the space of being emptied in a way.
Yeah.
Empty space.
Yeah. Lack of stimulation, isn't it, in our busy Western world that we live in? All right. So questions. I'm just checking that.
Yeah.
We've got another one here. Have we? I'm trying to understand how the system is working. Please bear with me, everybody. Okay. No, that's good. All right. Done. Okay, so I do have a question that comes in, a lady asking about bladder infections and ways to treat bladder infections. Is this something that you're willing to talk about, Karyn?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, very much so. I think, very often, especially with women, is bladder infections are very common. And I know that there's a lot of people who suffer with them on a very regular basis. So a one-off bladder infection, it can be easily treated. You can treat it with unsweetened, and this is highlighted, unsweetened cranberry juice can really, really work well. It's very bitter. So you can add a bit of stevia to that, but unsweetened cranberry juice. But also, I would say there's some one of the old traditional methods of treating a sort of cystitis-like infection is with barley, lemon and barley water. And it's not the lemon and barley water that you buy as a squash in the supermarket. I don't even know if you can get it anymore. But basically, all you need to do is you just need to get some barley groats, and simmer, so a handful of those, and you simmer them in water for about 20-25 minutes. Sieve off the oats because you don't want those. And then you add, so to that, so a handful of oats to the juice of 1 lemon with a teaspoon of either Manuka honey would be preferable, or a few drops of stevia. And you can take that as a tablespoon every 2 hours until you get relief. So that's an old traditional something. But that's the one-off. The thing is what I've noticed is there's a lot of people getting constant bladder infections. They go to their doctors, they go and get antibiotics, and it goes away, and then a couple of months later, or even a month later, it comes back. What we're dealing with then is an overgrowth, often of a fungal infection. And so what we need to do is we need to look at the root of that, and the root cause is often bowel overgrowth of Candida. Candida albicans is a fungal that is very prevalent and can be a root cause of a lot of irritable bowel, headaches, and various different things. So because the bowel is so close to the bladder, that's where the urethra, and so it's sort of where we can get that infection quite easily. And to deal with that, we need to really cut out sugars. There's a whole myriad of different diets and things you can go on for cleansing out Candida, but there's quite a few different products that we can use to help get rid of Candida. But we need to do it. We need to do like a 3-pronged approach. I can sort of talk to you about the 2 prongs, and then Karyn can talk about the other pronged approach, because there's an emotional component to this as well. So the first one is no sugar in the diet whatsoever, and that also means a very low carbohydrate diet for a period of time, just mainly because sugars of any guise feed Candida. And what we find very often is people can go on that program for quite a long period of time, and then all of a sudden they will get starving hungry. And that's because the little critters are dying off, and they're actually sending messages to the brain as they need feeding, and the body perceives that as a low blood sugar reaction, and so then you'll start craving sweet stuff or chocolate or whatever your thing is. Mine used to be potato crisp, so it's sort of anything that the body will get to feed the Candida, and so then you'll start feeling better. But if you can move through that and ignore that craving, and there's various different things you can do to help with supporting of that. But if you can do that along with taking some herbs, and in New Zealand we've got mother's horopito. Horopito is New Zealand pepper tree, and that's a great one for killing off Candida. But there's also like caprylic acid and various other herbs and things like olive leaf, and there's a 3 that comes to my brain as we're talking about this, but there's lots of others, and they will help kill off the Candida. So if you do the starving, and then you also do, it sounds very barbaric, doesn't it? Starving and then killing off, but it's the way you have to do it with these microbes, is then you'll start getting to the root cause of it. And then, okay, then I have to ask Karyn the question is, okay, Karyn, how would you perceive someone who's struggling with a bladder infection, and then maybe candida infection.
So with my experience, there is a mass consciousness with the fungal, and the fungal, you're right there. The fungal, it looks fascinating. It's very beautiful in the body, and I say that with deep respect. It actually looks very pretty. A whole lot of kind of mushroomy, kind of very pretty. It's very pretty in the shapes that it is and in the forms that it is with this fungal. And the microbes of this fungal literally live on, yes, the sugars, right? The sweetness and the desire for sweetness in life. But they're often, so often underlaying it is the reason that they've been able to take up such a hold within the body does have a deep emotional component. And it's normally the lack of love or the lack of worthiness or the lack of inner connection. And there'll be others there too. So at the emotional component, spiritual and energetic as well, it would be teaching the actual being how to live without the loss and lack of that group of beingness inside of them, which is why they feel like they're dying off. As Karyn said, they literally want to live, and because there's enough of a mass consciousness of this fungal in the body, it is actually directing and pointing to ways of being and how so that it can survive within the vessel of the whole body. It orchestrates and manipulates through beliefs, through values, through tastes, through experiences, through making meaning in order for its survival. And so it's okay to have some, but not so big a mass conscious. And the process of removing that would be a die-off period. But first of all, would be looking at the underlying factors of connection and love, self-love, worthiness. There'll also be fears that filter into there. So what people are fearful of. And again, it's going to be individual for each person, but there'll still be a broad view of this lack of connection in life. When it happened, I remember having quite a large die-off, like Karyn said, not through food, but through doing quite a big, deep series of belief changes inside of myself. It did literally feel like parts of me were dying as I listened into the change.
Yeah, it does.
And as those parts of me were dying, it was the community of this fungal, and they couldn't live with the new beliefs that I took up. And I've seen this with some of my own clients as we shift some really deep beliefs that are underlying. The body goes through quite a die-off period, a real cleansing of the old physical ways of being in order to make a space and an allowing for our new way of being to come through. It's really fascinating. It can be done slowly over time. Of course, if you're going to do an energetic emotional cleanse with it, that's only a part of the whole. And when you come at it from what Karyn's suggesting with the physical as well, there's a very direct process, because now now you're supporting the base physical, which is a slower vibration, and connecting it with the higher vibration and everything in between. So now you've got a real direction and an orientation within yourself and your whole being to allow a new way to emerge within you. Because just as Karyn said at the beginning, we're always coming into a new way of being, aren't we, Karyn?
Absolutely. And that actually swings quite nicely into using the Epsom salt foot bath or bath to actually help you with clearing of that.
Yes.
Because I do believe that can help with the emotional component too,
Yeah. So, Karyn, would you suggest the black coal as a part of helping to cleanse out the process of that? Or because I have another product, which I can't even remember right now because I buy it off the shelf, but it really helps that die-off process be easier within me and my feeling.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
So I use a product called, I'm just remembering it, called Chem Defense, and I can't remember what's in it. But Chem Defense seems to help me with the die-off process, and it definitely helps my clients with that dying off.
Yeah, so things like charcoal can really help with that.
I wondered.
And the other thing that anything that's going to sort of like with the bowels enable everything to be let go of easily. And so charcoal can help that, because what charcoal does is it absorbs about 100 times its own weight into itself,
like an egg.
Toxins and stuff that's within the bowels. But so can bentonite clay. So there's a product called Living Clay, which is the best bentonite clay I've ever come across. Unfortunately, it comes from the States. But the reason it's so good is it comes from an area where it's found that it's coated with a coating of another mineral called zeolite. And zeolite absorbs heavy metals into itself. So this bentonite clay is so pure, it's got none of the heavy metal toxins that we can get in some of the other clays and things. And so it's a really highly beneficial clay. I've made a product, which I'm not advertising it here because I don't make it anymore. Well, I do occasionally for clients, but I made a product called Immutox, which was to boost immunity and to actually help with killing off microbes. And so it's a liquid clay, and it's a really funny texture when you take it. But I put it in with olive leaf extract, which I make, and other herbs and things to help kill off and boost your immune system. And that sort of thing can be really useful for when you're having die-off, because you're wanting to really boost immunity while you're doing it, because the reason often physically, I'll reiterate that, the reason physically is because our immune systems have got low. And that's when the opportunists of the Candida microbes get in there, and they're allowed to go through. So because, for those of you who don't know, many of you probably don't know, but the Candida microbe lives in our gut naturally, but it goes along with the whole colony of different microbes and things that all live beautifully together and keep in synergy until we are thrown out of balance. And we've talked about balance many times before, Karyn, on these calls. And the thing with gut balance is it gets upset by things like antibiotics, emotional upset, that sort of thing. And that's when the sort of negative microbes overtake the good microbes. And so it's just an out of balance thing.
So it's an ecology out of balance, an ecological system that is in synchronicity with itself until it's not, and then there's a and so life is always happening. Actually, Karyn and I'd love to share this here because it's I think it's profound. Karyn and I were being banged by we're standing chatting, just totally enjoying being very present with our feet in the sand, and waves just banging into us, and we'd step forward and we'd step to the side and we'd turn around and take a wave from our back, and then we began to laugh and giggle and going, actually these waves aren't always banging us at the same time. They're not. If we stand here, the wave will shift where its breaking is, either in front of us, upon us, or after us. And every wave seemed to have its own life. And so we couldn't guess where it was going to break. We began to go, oh, that one's breaking now, and because there's all that. But what we were fascinated by was if we stood in the one place, and if we looked away from where the waves were coming from, we didn't know when it was going to come through as a swell for us, as an experience, or as a head bang, or as a body slam. And it was not dissimilar to life sometimes. If we let's talk about this. If we've got our focused backwards for something in the past, then it's very hard to see what's coming up in life or what's in our present space. So if I turn and talk about looking out towards the sea, we could at least see the waves coming. But if we stayed in the same place, it was going to affect us differently compared to a swell or it breaking on top of us or breaking before it hit and we just got the bubbles. If we stepped into it, or if we stepped backwards, we would change some of the effect of these waves that were coming forward. And I just saw it a lot like the deep metaphor of life. It is a constant thing. Sometimes the waves are very big, sometimes they're just little, sometimes they're crashing on us, sometimes they're not. But if we go back to this balance, when we're in a balanced space and we're just feeling the joy of life and we're experiencing ourselves in a joyful way, even if we're laughing because of what's just happened, a couple of times we did have that experience where we were taken by surprise. It's easier to deal with than if I had been in a stressed out space, because I'm not a big swimmer. If I had been in a stressed out, freaked out space, then every wave would have been fearful. And I guess my whole point here is when we're doing life with a little bit more fun and a forward-facing component of joy in life, there's a little less surprises and yet still a whole lot of fun. If we've got our back to the waves because we're facing backwards and we're caught in the past and we have a whole lot of fear around things, then one wave can take us out completely. And that might be the last time we find the joy in being in the ocean of life. So it's just a little bit of a metaphor to play with the idea of balance and imbalance that can occur in our body.
Absolutely, and it makes so much sense, really, when you put it like that, because we are going to be, we're living in a human form, and we're enjoying being physical. If we can stand in a way that actually helps us be balanced, so if we stand with 2 feet on the ground and we're feeling strong and everything else, then the waves don't affect us so much. And even if we do get bowled over, like you say, we can stand up quickly and laugh about it, rather than taking it all so seriously and allowing those little buffetings to affect us in a negative way. Yeah. And it's the same with anything, really.
I guess, and it is the same with everything. And I love the fact that when we come together, we often talk about, we come from, we might talk about the physical, we might talk about the emotional, we might talk about the spiritual, we might talk about the energetic, but really those are just labels and gateways into the whole of our being. I have definitely noticed the full end of last year, so mid to end of last year was when I started using the magnesium. As an intuitive, that has helped me tremendously. I don't have such a need for recovery after some really big work with groups of clients. I have an instant physical support that's there in place, which I had the perspective of that wasn't needed before. But my experience is, as long as I'm giving myself physical support, emotional allowing or freedom, and the intuition factor connected, there's more of a wholeness and a balance than when I only work from one space or work from one place. So this is why we've loved coming together, isn't it, Karyn, to make sure that we're kind of including different factors that can be a part of it, because we're complex creatures, but we're simple creatures. We're magnificent beings who have these incredible bodies that do wonders beyond our...
We are indeed, and that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's being able to, because we all come at life in a different way, and being able to share our various levels of expertise on these other things, we get insights into it in a deeper level, and that's what I love about sharing with others. and I'm sure you're the same, Karyn, is every client, person I talk to, I learn off them.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what we're here for, isn't it? To learn, you know.
I think we are. So
anyway, so just we digress, but I've just had a question, and it's actually directed almost completely at your area of expertise. Is one the question is about diabetes, and this is diabetes type 2. Is basically the question was, why did I get diabetes? You know, not that I've got it, but the question was from a client.
Oh, so this is one quite close to my heart. Diabetes 2 for me is easier to speak of because my son is type 1. Diabetes 2, this won't be an all-encompassing answer, okay? This won't be an all-encompassing answer, but it will tap into some possibilities. If I understand the correct thing of what happens with the insulin, is the insulin receptors and release becomes not deficient but resistant, so that the body becomes resistant to the insulin that's being released in type 2 diabetes. That's the fundamental shift that occurs?
What what happens is that when we're in balance and the body creates the insulin gets uptaken and utilized. When we go out of balance, we create insulin, but there's insulin resistance. It's where the body can't uptake the insulin, and so the body starts making more and more and more, and it still can't uptake it. So that's when we get it's resistance. Actually, it's insulin resistance. And I mean, I've got my take on it, but I'd love to hear the emotional, metaphysical side.
I have a real sense that majority is around that word, resistance, and that's why I was just checking in with it. A lot to do with resistance. Resistance shows up in multiple forms, but I'm coming back to the sweetness of life again. Sometimes there's such great disappointment that people have experienced. Now, everybody's toleration of disappointment is different, but there's such great disappointment that people have experienced through expectations in life, that there's this, I want to say, senseless, needless feeling that underlays in the vibration. It could have many different beliefs that are functioning at that level, but there's this deep separation from a wholeness. So I know it all comes back to that for me when I'm explaining it, but there's this such a adamant way of being. This is the way life is. Life is hard. Life sucks. Life, when somebody gets to that level of life is with a word, that vibrationally points towards something that is less than. Everything inside of the body, the 50 trillion cells, have to begin to behave in such a way to make that true for that person. Now, the truth of where it originally came from will be some level of experience. Probably it feels like it'll be some level of disappointment where the sweetness in life wasn't there, or the transition to energy flowing. So there's this blockage. No, it's not a blockage. There's this trapping off of allowing life to express easily. So it comes back to that hardness in life, that consistent pressing back on something. It's very likely that not only are they adamant in beliefs of the way their opinions are, but they're also unreceptive to other people's opinions. So now we're moving to the mind sector, where the behaviors are transitioning out to non-acceptance of other people's ways of viewing the world. And they find probably that other people don't like the way they view the world. So there's that resistance. It builds up this inner trap of resistance. So this is the way who I am because life is hard, and you're either going to fit into my bucket of life or you're not, and if you don't, then go sit over there. If you do, then you are just a complete replica of my 50 trillion cells seeking for confirmation external to myself of my chosen way to experience, because life hasn't been good for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so that's a really wonderful explanation. So basically, do you think when you have families who are experiencing diabetes, whether that is a genetic, I don't like to say genetic, but inherited way of thinking, way of being, or is it stuck within the genetics? Do you see what I mean? The emotional stuff.
I do believe that it will have a genetic component to it, a DNA way of thinking, a DNA program, a persistent pattern of thought, a habitual nature of being, not just thought, an actual habitual vibrational way of being will probably be present. That's easily shifted. It will, because when we come into our full life situation now, we either replicate that which we have experienced, or we go in search of something different and break the cycle. If I'm just looking at a family I know, and if I look at their energy and I look at their facial structures and their habitual belief patterns, there is definitely cyclic patterns in there, and there is definitely entrenched habitual thinking, habitual actual storytelling. So it comes back to that base of story as well, which could indicate and could point to some mass conscious, not just hereditary, but experiences that have been in life. Yeah, it's interesting when we go that deep, and because I'm not having to think about any one particular person, I'm sort of doing a broad brush observation. Spiritual level, let's have a look at it from a vibrational spiritual level. I'm getting miscommunication. From a vibrational spiritual level, it's a miscommunication in the system. So it's like a miscommunication that's center hierarchy of, I'm going to use the word values, but I want a better word, but it's center hierarchy of value experiences that have become of a higher priority than this miscommunication. So the miscommunication is underlaying it because something else became more important. And I'm going to guess that was survival of the fittest. And no, that's old thinking, but survival of the fittest in its old paradigm thinking. Fascinating. At a spiritual vibrational level, if I go to the miscommunication, it's kind of like a wire crossing over. There's I get a shorting out, which sends me to the nervous system to investigate that. So it's very much a miscommunication. It's like the systems aren't interacting in a way that vibrationally would be. Okay, so more information here. So if I look at a broader spec of a possibility of someone who has a typical type 2 diabetes approach, I can see through the vibrations of, so within their sphere, the communications coming through from the new cells that are forming outside of the body and moving forward at a vibrational level into a much more denser form, actually have like crevices or valleys to move through, and so there's some no-go zones, which will be no-go zones. So they're like things that have been completely boxed off of access, so the cells are having to move around it, so this information, this miscommunication isn't being brought into the whole center. Did any of that make sense? Because it's so visual for me right now.
Yes, it does actually, because when I so see what you're talking about, but because when we're looking at the physical level of diabetes, there's the miscommunication. It's where the body is creating insulin, but it's not being utilized. And of course, I look at it, right, okay, because I've done so much research on things like magnesium, is that if we don't have enough magnesium in our body, we can't make perfect insulin. And so if we can't make perfect insulin, those insulin receptors can't talk to one another. And I believe that at a physical level, that's one of the root causes of diabetes within our society, because it's becoming very prevalent. And so that's what I look at, is like, okay, that's one of the root causes. And then of course we've got layer upon layer of eating foods that aren't real food, and then we've got the sugar addictions and everything else that goes on top. So is that because, are we eating those foods and doing all this because we're actually on a metaphysical level not connecting with self? And so that's what really starts coming to my mind. Are we just not connecting with who we truly are? And so if we're not connecting with who we truly are, then we can't make the right choices for us.
Yeah, I don't, currently in my life, in my current worldview, I can't see anything that doesn't come back to whether we're connected to our wholeness or not. So far, I haven't witnessed anything other than that being the deepest resolution. And it's kind of exciting so far. I mean, I'm saying so far in my journey, who knows what could become more prevalent or aware in moving forward. But there are levels of connection too. I mean, you point to magnesium. I always look at that as a deep support to the body, and that level of being able to be connected, I guess, even in safe in the physical realm that we're in. So if there's miscommunication occurring from a vibrational level, because, well, let's just even go, if we're holding so fast, now this is an extreme case, but if we're holding so fast to that there is only physical, nothing else exists, it is only physical, anything unseen does not exist, it is only physical, it must be logical, it must be scientifically proven, it must be in my face, in my space, it must be felt here, sensed right now, or it does not exist. From that frame of reference, according to the way I'm seeing and feeling that excommunicates me from probably 80% of my wholeness, the possibility of everything else. But here's the beautiful thing, is that still loves me and supports me in the best way that I can, even though I'm ignoring it. So there's a right out miscommunication there, just in that one. And we wouldn't be talking about this diabetes within that. We'd be talking about a lot of that sense of just feeling unloved, not belonging, the deep ones, not belonging, unlovable, even excommunicated, almost falls into the sense that I'm going to go into some swear words, but into the bullshit, everything's bullshit, nothing has meaning, etc., because it's a one frame window to look through. Yeah. Current today is of current awareness.
Perfectly perfect. And that's a very deep conversation to have, I think, this particular forum, isn't it, really? It's because we could talk all day around the subject, and we have more. And so, okay, sorry, my brain just went out then. We got any more questions? Or?
No, we haven't, and we're coming up our time. So I really thank the people who have come on here. You've been very quiet today, everybody. So we've covered salts, we've covered bladder infections, we've covered fungal, we've covered some aspects around type 2 diabetes. We've covered actually some deep life metaphors, possibly because of our conversations that we had in the weekend, Karyn. It's got to roll in through.
Yeah.
And verbalizing our
yeah, it's going to keep reverberating around our existence, isn't it, for a long time to come, I think.
I'd say so. So, and
probably
also,
forever.
Yeah, and also, of course, everything's concept or playful as it moves into our own physical experiences. So that's not just for us, right? That's for everybody. So the playfulness that we're coming to with this is an open forum to explore possibility and potentiality. And I think the deepest thing, and I really want to say this in this forum, is we are our best physician, we are our best doctor, we are our best, as in you are the best physician, you are the best doctor, you are the best specialist, you are the best connector, you're the best thing for your being, and you walk around with a physical body that is so magnificent, and you're more than that. So it's those.
I would add to that is really, if you know in your heart that something isn't right, and your physician, your practitioner, whatever, tells you that there's nothing wrong with you, keep delving, because you know that something's not right, and so go and find the answer somewhere. Whatever feels right is go for it.
And the other way around is if emotionally you're distraught and you have a cold and baby didn't sleep all night, and you and your little toddler's got a runny snotty nose, and the husband's having, I'm making up a scenario, and the husband's having some trouble at work and hasn't had attention to pay to you, and you go to the doctor and you're feeling pretty low, and they offer you depression medication. Do you need it, or are all of those little parts pointing to just not feeling good right now? So, and I say that from a perspective that wasn't my entire story, but that was a portion of my story about 12 years ago when I had, so she's 15, nearly 16, so even younger, 15 years ago. And I went to the doctor and I cried in the doctor's room, and they offered me depression tablets. And I remember looking at them going, I know nothing about it, I'm so tired. But I actually received a letter from the medical, I received a letter from the mental health service saying that they needed to see me. And I was reasonably resourced, thank goodness, when I saw the letter again, and I just went, wow, just because I cried at the doctor's. So yeah, sometimes we need to delve deeper because there is actually something wrong, and sometimes we're just feeling disconnected from ourselves, and we don't need medication to numb ourselves down. Oh, but that's advice. No, it's Karyn's opinion.
Yeah, I agree, because we could actually, that could be another subject for a whole hour, 2-hour discussion, because it's a big one. And I think, and I've just got a message with someone who wanted us to go deeper. So I think maybe that could be the one we could start with next week.
Okay, let's do that, because we're coming up our hour and we need to keep it inside of this. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, we need more time with that one.
Yeah, if you're finding these useful, please share with other people. It would be lovely to grow over time, as it is already growing. The people that are connecting in with us. Your questions are welcome all through the week. Connect with us on Facebook or by email. Instagram, if you're connected there, however you want to, if you have questions, or turn up live on the call and ask us questions. So, thank you.
Yeah, keep the questions coming, because they're great.
Thank you so much for being you. This is Karyn Janelle Davis and Karyn Creighton with Medical and Metaphysical Magic, and our opinions and experience. So thank you very much for being here. See you later.
Thank you.